Today is Chaf Beis, Adar, Tashin Samech Tes. We're in Amid Chaf Tes of Samech Chaf Hey of Samech Tes. Whatever your shop.
Everybody's here speaking in front of a large audience here. You know what they call stage fright.
The whole world is going to listen to this.
Right. There's an old saying that two yeshiva bochum sit in a Beis HaMedrash and they argue on a point in the Gemara. So you find sometimes in the Marshua, in his Pirush on the Halachas, he says, Machshim ho'elo. This and this kasha. The world asks this and this kasha. So everybody says, they don't know the world asking this kasha. Never heard of it before. They don't think there's a world. Who's the world that's asking the kasha? So they say that if two yeshiva bochum sit and in the pilpul one with the other, they all of a sudden come up with that kasha, then that's the whole world. All right. So we're seeing about the Meiler of a Chacham Amiti. We saw that the Shem Chacham in his regard was Shem HaToya. And we saw that the Inen of the Shemois, the Sugei HaShemois, was shot to the Kelim. And that the Kelim were the Inen of Koichois, and that the Shem, meaning the Sug, the type of Shem, is Lefi, the function of the Kli. And we saw that the Shem Toya means that you describe the Kli be'etzem mahusay. Now the Shem ha'etzem, which we didn't mention so far here, we'll deal with that, as we said, not far down the progress line here. We'll come to the Shem ha'etzem. However, for the time being, we're dealing with the Shem ha'toya, and then in contrast to that, Shem Kinui and Shema Apula. And we've been arguing that Shema Atoya is a intimate terminology for the etzem. It's a description of the etzem. Be'etzem. Ve'ilu Shema Kinui Vipula, which are really the same meaning here for our purposes, or they describe inyonim which are not really a description of the etzem, but something that the etzem does with certain information or material that might have reached it. And it does that michutz le'atzmusei. As we have the famous klal that every pu'ula is michutz ha'etzem. Because when you say pu'ula, you mean achieving something in another entity, which means that you must be in some way moving out of your siachtas with your own etzem towards the other entity. And pu'ula means that you achieve something in an entity which is outside yourself. It's not shy to say that you will pull something by yourself, even though you can use that expression in a borrowed way in Yiddish or even maybe in Rosh Kodesh. I wasn't able to oblige myself to do it, but that's all borrowed terminology. The Ike word pu'ula is in an Indian michutz mimeno. So therefore the shemois, which represent the function of the kelim michutz mihem, are kinui or pu'ula, and therefore the use of the material that they use in order to be poyo michutz mihem is not something necessarily they've been misachid with that betachas hayichud and it's become part of their mahus, nor as to a certain extent, here they have what we called yesterday a certain collection or a certain treasure house inside themselves, and they can give forth that particular material through an act which is behemoth shayat to the chutz. And therefore, we have to say that that's shayat to the chitzonius of the kli, of not to the emes of pnimius mahus of the kli, because only something which is shayat to chitzonius could actually give itself off in a way that is going to be yotzeh hachutza to the makabel, or to the Indian or the entity which is makabel. Ashinkin kol etzim, as we know, is einu mishchalik ve'einu yoytzi michutz mi'atzmei, or to use the expression, it's not, what's the expression when I get to an etzim? It's einu mishpashet, I'm sorry, kol etzim, einu mishpashet. In other words, it doesn't go out michutz le'atzmusai. And therefore, if we're going to say that the Shem Toya Chacham is Mataya the Etzem Kli, then that means something that's Mishyachid and is the quality of the Etzem Kli itself, not how the Kli goes out, even Chitzeni to relate to another entity. So that's what we're dealing with now. And in order to stress the greatness of the Chacham, how he is B'Shem HaToya, then we brought several examples. We brought one or two examples of people who, albeit they use sikliim with capability, but they're not necessarily misachid in the etzem klei moicham with those sikliim that they use. And so we're in the middle of the dogma of the tafson. We saw that there was a person, he can be makabel certain sikliim, and he can even be mashpir them to a zulos, but who bi'atzmei einu mevin es inyonim klal. Now that's a very fascinating expression, because we would have thought that maybe he understands them a bit. Maybe he has some general or chitzonius knowledge in those inyonim. So the Rebbe said it's more the capability that he's clear. Moich has the ability to grasp but not to grasp in the way that we usually use the word grasping, which is hasoga. When we use the word hasoga, then we mean a grasping in the form of an emissar understanding and an emissar appreciation. For Ilu, here we say tafson, that means that he just grabbed it over, not that he was really masig in the normal sense. So therefore, that means that it's, to use the expression, it sort of passes through the kli, but it doesn't actually unite in any essential way, or even b'chitonius with the kli. So therefore, the Rebbe says that he's not necessarily mavin as a inyonim b'klal. Ki ein lo chush klal b'haskola. And we dealt yesterday with the word chush in reference to terms of this sort, that even though chush means one of the senses, here it means an ability, like a sort of special heaven-given capacity on the part of a person, that he's got a leaning and an emissar ability to unite with certain things. Like we say, a person got a chush in nagina, and as we mentioned last night towards the end of the shir, people who have a leaning and an ability to hear a niggun and to sing it and to give it forth very exactly and beautifully, well, that's called a chush. So he doesn't have a chush at all in Askola. You can't call him a chacham b'emes in his etzem, acharei she'einu mevin dvar seichel. He doesn't really understand a dvar seichel. But that's a pili. V'gam yef shaloima sheklei moichoi heima klei kibu l'chachma meyacha she'en loi chush b'zeh. So we see that we're dealing kill from both sides of the coin. On the one hand, we can't call him a chacham because he personally doesn't relate to the in the way of a havana. But that's the whole purpose, that the person is supposed to say ani me vin. He's supposed to actually gain the thing and unite with it in the way that we say he's a. And that's the expression we call about somebody who has a good knowledge of any theme. Then we say he's a mevin b'dor, which means you couldn't possibly say about a person who doesn't have any real knowledge of the thing that he's a mevin, because that's his personal relationship and his personal, as you might say, hisatzmas with the inyan. So the Rebbe said he doesn't understand. So from, as it were, from the personal relationship of the mensch to his kli, he doesn't really understand it. What about the etzem kli itself? I mean, we must say that the kli itself has some ability to be mekabel, and it's a kli kibul, because he gave it over very capably. So the Rebbe said, no, If he doesn't have a chush there, then that means that the kli is not able to really absorb it. That from the point of view of the kli, there's also no real realization of the matter. And so there we see, interestingly, that the word chush means the very kli or kalim within a mensch for those inyan or inyonim, like music or nagina or other such things. They are really a very essential part of the kalim of a mensch which relate to those inyonim. And that's why we say chush is like a gift that we can't quite define it, because it's an essential yichud el kaponim or ability of that kli to be makabel those inyonim. And therefore we see that somebody who has a chush to use the expression that we used last night, in nagina, we say a chush in nagina, then he picks up a nigun with tremendous sensitivity and swiftness that take other people years maybe that they wouldn't really remember carefully the nigun, and he doesn't have to spend a tremendous amount of time trying to remind himself all the different nigunim, because they just all pop into his, and he'll sing you any nigun that you invite him to, or he'll play it if he's got a chush and of an instrument. When I was last time in Australia, I met up with a person that he's a very amazing. He was a big, prodigy of a musician when he was young, and then he became a balchur and he left almost all of it behind. But he was like, he was a big, public player, and he would have had a world career in front of him. But he left it in order to become from. And now he teaches in schools. He teaches music and instrument playing to children. That's the way he has panos from it. He said, "Would you like to hear some nigun, Yaakov? You want me to play? Well, maybe we'll just sort of sing and play a nigun together." And I said, "Yeah, sure." So he pulls out he's got this amazing instrument, it's worth thousands of dollars. It's fiddle that he has, I just said to him, what about this and this? What about this and this nigun? So he just said, "Oh yes, you have to remind me, I don't really know the niguns by their names, And so I told him, and these things was just unbelievable the way it was coming out. It was unbelievable delicacy and ruchnias that he was playing the nigun. I said, "Let's call it a chush." It's like a gift, like an elixir gift that certain people have. If you have a chush in a certain inyan, then your kli, that means that your kli is a kli kibu, be emes to that inyan, and therefore it unites with the inyan. So he said we can't say that he's okay mitzat the kli, because since he doesn't have any chush there, then the kli, that means that the kli is not uniting with it at all. Umikom, okay? B'shem chacham yichu, where am I? Yeah, b'shem. Klikable, me'achashen lechush b'shem. Umikol mochim b'shem chacham yichuneh, sha'arei nimtza etzloi chachma b'moichoi. Umikol mochim ein lahachach misvah sichloyes shum shayches lechli moichoi be'etzem. So therefore he said, he's given the name of Hashem Chachma, Hashem Chacham Yichuneh. What that means, he's given, as it were, like a termed name, Chacham, to use the expression, a nickname, a termed name, which has some accuracy to it, but it's not real. It's not his real name, to use the expression. Hashem Yichuneh is famous, the expression that the Friedrich Rebbe used after Yud Beis Tammuz, another famous lashon of the Friedrich Rebbe after he came out, Yud Beis Tammuz, that he said, "Lo oisi bilvad go al hakodesh baruch hu, ela gam es kol mi shebashem Yisrael yichuneh." Exactly the same expression. That's what occurs here. He says that not only did the Eibishter take me out of prison, ki'im, that's right, sorry. Lo oisi bilvad go al hakodesh baruch hu ki'im ko shoymrei v'choyvei Torah mitzvahs, all people who keep and hold dear Torah and mitzvahs, v'gam es kol misha b'shem Yisrael Yichuneh, even if he's only called a nickname of a Yid. That's all he allows in his life, just to be called a Yid, or he doesn't act like a Yid. But nonetheless, he was also redeemed on Yud Beit Tammuz. That was the expression of the B'Shem Yisrael Yichuneh. The difference is that over here, that's the Pshat. And over there, that's not the Pshat, because even a Yid, Cholila, even if he only calls himself, allows himself to be termed a Yid, and doesn't really want to live with it, but it doesn't alter the fact that he really is a Yid B'chol ha'etzem. Over here, it just means that he's not really a Chacham, but he's given that name, and therefore it's not shayk to the Pnimiyus, it's only shayk to the Chitzonius of the Kli, and therefore it's called a Shem HaKinui by him. Shaharei, Nimtze Etzloi Chachma Moichai, Umikom, okay? Ein LaChachmas VaSiklim Shum Shaykas LeKli Moichai Be'etzem, or Klei Moichai Be'etzem. Rutzeini Leima, Shekli Moichai Einam Kelim Be'etzem LaSiklim Sheyesh Loi. He has them, but they're not really Kelim. In brackets, Ukumoi Im Noima, Sheyesh Loi Siklim Bam Tachosai. It's like as if he would allow us to say, that he has siklim in his, how do you call it, his tarpaulin, what do you call it, his knapsack. In other words, in his bag, he's got siklim. In other words, he's got them stored away in a way that he can reach them, but they're not really part of him. That's an amazing expression. He's got them, and they're stored in him, and he can use them, but it's like he's got them in a bag, it's like he's got them in a kli outside his kli. That's an amazing expression. So the Rebbe comes to Islafis here, that he's called a Chacham because he's got siklim in his bag, but it's only a Shem HaKinui, it's not a Shem to the etzem of his kli. Therefore, K'moi Kain, Hu B'mi Shehu Chacham B'emes, this is more, he actually uses the siklim in his moyach, and he's a Chacham B'emes. He Masha Nikra Chacham, Al Shem Masha Kfar Kibel Chachma, Hainu Al Shem Masha Kfar Hiskir, As Kodesh Gedolos V'Amukei. Now, here we notice the expression that somebody who was a Chacham B'emes, Pirush, that he's already been Makabel Chachma. In other words, that he called at a certain time he was Makabel a lot of Siklim, and he was already Mishchachim, even to a certain extent in them. Hainu al Shem Masha Kfar Hiskil as Kodesh Gedolos V'Amukei. In other words, he was already, he understood and he appreciated big and deep concepts. In other words, he already had done those in Yonim. Oi al Shem Masha Mashpia Chachmas Harbe. He gives out a lot of Chachmas. In other words, if people ask him questions, he's always got a good answer, and he's Mashpia Lafi the Chacham of the question which is asked. He said, but all of that, nonetheless, the fact that he's called a Chacham, Hu Shem Akinui Levad. She'en lo shayches kol kach ela etzem. It's not so shaych to the etzem. Izehu rak pu'ulas kli chokmosei shepo'al pu'ulas askola v'is chachmes u'pu'ulas ashpoa u'ya limud ela zulas. V'chol pu'ula hi chutz lo etzem ki ha'etzem atzmei ein po'el dova. והפעולה היא רק בחינת חיצוניוס הכלי וגם חיצוניוס האויר. So here we see an amazing principle, and that is that if somebody is a emes chacham, then it's not right to say he already did have chachma, or he already was maskil chachma, or it doesn't necessarily even mean that he can answer you accurately about inyonim. But a emes Hashem chacham, b'shem atoya, means that b'chol hazman, b'chol haragoyim, b'gam ba'ova, b'gam b'hoive, b'gam b'tekev miyad b'al osid, he's all the time in inyone chachma. And as you call it, das ist ein ganze Mahusa, das ist ein ganze Chayes, and therefore the etzem keili is nikra al Shem chacham. Just 1 second. Here we see by this person that the Diur Haloshen L'choire is that Kfar Kibul Chachma. In other words, he already had, at one time, he was Mekabel Chachma, and he made good use of it then, and he was maskil, the Haskalas, Gedolos, Vamur, very big and profound Haskalas. Or another possibility, that he's very good at being Mashpia Chachmas. In other words, that's not necessarily a raya that the etzem kli is a kli amiti kabel chachmas of lishachad imohem. No, then he's like somewhat similar to that tafson. In other words, he's got a good store in his mind that he can always over beiked at shai to the over. He got that in life, and now, to a certain extent, you might say he's benefiting from his past efforts, and he can even use it effectively to give over to somebody the form of hashpur. So the Rebbe said, "Im ken kumtois," that's the inyan from a pu'ula. In other words, why isn't he? Why don't we say that it's mishachid actual bekli chokmos? Why do we say kfar? Is a simple that even when he was maskil, those chokmos amukes, he and the inyan like a pu'ula. In other words, it was like an activity. How do you call? Some people say he's very interested in the activity, or he's got a hobby, or he likes chokmos. In other words, that's not necessarily etzem hisaskusei amiti. No, it was like a pu'ula boy. It was like he was doing something. Chutz mi'atzmos, and that chutz mi'atzmos, it was to take in chokmas, because he had a liking and a leaning for deep ideas. And he had a gishmak in something deep. And therefore, it could be that he's able to give it over to the Tzveiter because he's got it. But since he's a man of good, appreciation, and therefore he's got it more than what the Tafson has, because Tafson really don't know anything. He's got it, but he got it in the way of a pu'ula. That was like an activity that he had in life. And every pu'ula is not that the etzem actually does the pu'ula, nor through the chitonias of the etzem, there's a kilo yetzia from the chitonias, ela chitonias, and that's called pu'ula. So it's an amazing concept. That the Rebbe said, even in those chokmas that he got, that's also a pu'ula. How much more so when he gives it over to the other person? Over here and there, his kli and the chokmas are not mamish one unity. It's an amazing thing. And therefore you'll often meet up with people that they'll say, he once upon a time learned, you ask him and he'll give you a good answer. Hotki learned. He did learn once. People will tell you that. Or, he was once a big mashkil or something. Emes HaChacham, you would never talk in the past tense. And Emes HaChacham, he's all the time, sein ganzen Leben, the whole time he's living with new nevias and new inyonim, because the clay hamoyach and the oyer haseichel mishachad pnimis ubiatzmiyas. Now, it's a fella dikazah. So therefore, says the Rebbe, kol piyula hu chutz le'etzem. Favus ki ha'etzem atzmei eino poel dova. Now, favus it was. Why do we say that an etzem is not poel dova? Because a etzem is a dova muvdal and how they call it, withdrawn in its own essentiality of its etzem. And therefore, it doesn't do things outside. Might say that's a chisaron in an etzem, that it doesn't achieve anything on the outside. So we say it's not that the etzem can't reach the outside, but if the etzem does reach the outside, it itself doesn't go outside, but it sends literally what you might call almost like a shaliach through ha'orach hatzenius of itself to the outside. But the etzem is not mamish yoytze el azulas. However, that doesn't mean that there can never be such a Matthias. There is a Matthias sometimes where the etzem does reach a form of giving itself. Well, that's very special and rare and unusual cases. And Liyasid Lovei, Yeah, the oven of the Kabbalah will be in an oven that the Etzem will be scattered to us. Right now, everything is through Kaviyachol Ha'oretz from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Arizal brings down in the Shah Krishma Aramita of all places, don't bring to us. It doesn't, the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital schreibt that the Osid, or maybe it's not Krishma Aramita, I think it's Shara Krishma. Or there's another Indian which he mentions in Krishma Aramita, when we come to that as we go along. Shara Krishma, I think it is, that he writes that Leosid will be Gilui Pnimi Asatik. All Yidden, all the Makablim will be Gilui Pnimi Asatik. Now, Pnimi Asatik, that's Mamish Kaviyol Etzem Ein Tzayim. That's Mamish the Etzem. That means that the Etzem is going to come over, and therefore the learning will be Migadol, Migaidlom Viad Ketanom, from the big to the small, everybody will learn in Kimayim Le'am Machashim. But even in that, there's the Rebbe's famous diuk that there will be slight differences. Of the same oifen of limud will be, maybe not slight, maybe insignificant, of the same oifen of limud will be shaykh to everybody. It'll be a gilui mahus. Just that some people, even in that mahus, they will, mitzad their keili, they'll be mishachid with it more. And you know who those people are. Those are the Hasidim. Those are the Hasidim. Yeah, I'll be in the Hasidim Gufa, you know who that is. You can't just sit down and light up a cigar and say, oh yes, I'm a Chavadnik and the fire, you know, those Hasidim who've really acted and really learned Chassidus and they've really heard of it, they will have it. Doubtless, everybody will have some aspect of it. And that's what the Rebbe says here, that it's a gewaldige gift that he had, that he was able to be makabel these scholars, aber wie bald lebt nicht mit dem mamish the whole time, even though he can give you a very skilled answer, well, that makes him only a chacham b'shem kinui. And what he's really doing is acting only with a chetani. He's living in a world of what you call activities. But not in etzem is shachtas with the inner from Chacham. Pele. No. Shema Toya, that's all up to now, Shema Kinu and Shema Piula. Omnom Shema Toya, hu Shema Tayer esa etzem. Hu Masha Bekoya Clay or Kli Chokmosai, or Clay Chokmosai, Lakabel Harbe Chokma, Lahamik Bechol Dover, Bechol Dva Chokma, Lahaskil Ulihis Hakein Boy. Mipnei she'etzem Clay Moichoi Musugorim Lakabel Chokmas or Chokma Harbe. Now notice here that once we move into the Shema Toya, we say that that the word Chocham is Mataya the Etzer. And here it's Mataya what the Koyach and the Kli Chochmosai is Lekabel Harbe Chochma. Not to Stam Chochma, but Harbe Chochma, by in what far oifen? Lahamik Bechol Dva Chochma, Lahaskil, to get the idea, Ulehis Chakeim boy. Lehis Chakeim is a reflexive of the word Chocham, Chochma. Lehis Chakeim means that he takes it and he turns that into new wisdom within himself. In other words, that he comes up with new giluim and new aspects of that Chochma, what he was makabel. Now, if you look carefully, we referred to these people up to now, which have been called Choch. Maybe in one place there occurred the Lashon Lehis Chakeim, but not in a real descriptive way. We'll notice here in these couple of lines that we're about to learn now, that the Rebbe repeats this expression Lehis Chakeim on more than one occasion. And that's the greatness of our emes of Chocham, that his Kli is miyuchad with the in and oyer ha-chochma. What is the oyer here? We haven't got to yet. We're only talking about the Kli. We're going to get later towards the purity of the oyer. Is out upon him, somebody like that, he, as it were, he uses and leapt with the chokhmah. In other words, immediately he gets it, he wants more. In other words, harbe, to use the expression, he's never satisfied. And he never sort of sits down and puts his feet up on the sofa and he says, "Oh, that was a nice geschmack piece of learning that I did today. Here we go." Puts away his safer and reads the latest journal or something. And the far. So everybody will say around here, "What, he never has any what do you call it, entertainment in life?" It's, I don't know. We have to ask you. But etc. Isomela says the Rebbe, he's mekabel chochmas harbe. What the word harbe is from Russian ribui. In other words, it's always moving by him. It's always, how do you call it, multiplying. And how does it multiply? Through the union of his chachem boy. In other words, that he takes the chokhmah, and he himself works in the chokhmah. In other words, he's all the time, how do they say it? He's all the time on the go, to use the old expression in English. He's always moving, with his mind. And anybody who ever saw the Rebbe, never saw how the Rebbe would treat a Indian, you just see this unbelievable development of Inyanim just pouring forth all the time, new Inyanim. And then there were many occasions where the Rebbe spoke about Indian, and the next bringing, he mentioned again, he brought some other new Gila in the whole thing that he hadn't brought up in the previous bringing. And I'd say, God say how you. And by the doors, particularly when a lot of these people went past, and some of them were big knobs, they would ask all sorts of different things quickly. Just the unbelievable weight of the mind, just to answer to them all, to say the right thing at the right moment, just cup the etzim nekuda. That's the inyan of an emes chacham, that he's all the time on the go, as they say. And that's what the Rebbe says here, that he is, had he got loimet chachmas harbe, lekabel chachma harbe, and how do you say, he's chachmas lekabel harbe chachma, ulahami kol dvar chachma lahaskil uleishchake. But notice that before you get to lahaskil uleishchakim, you get the from lahamik. What lahamik means to deepen yourself. Now that's a very interesting inyan that the Rebbe puts that first. He'd say that a person first of all learns it, and then he produces a lot of ideas, and then he goes deeper and deeper into it. And here we see, so the inyan of hamik is a chush of depth, and that comes with hadas. The emphasis of lahamik is shot to the koyach hadas, and it's brought down and says that the koyach hadas really functions in a hidden way before you really get to what you might call consciously using the koyach hadas. And that means that the koyach hadas has got the ability to be mechaber, chokhmah, and bina. It's got the ability to be, and that means that if you're given over, if you've given yourself away to chokhmah, well, that kufa is a form of das. And in a way, it's a very high das. It's called das nelam, or it's got different names. And that das is functioning because you become automatically interested in depth. You're so into it that you wouldn't take it unless you see only a deeper aspect to it. And that looking for the depth and that feeling of the depth, well, that's really helping you to take the chokhmah and to be mischakein boy. Therefore the Rebbe says lahamik first, and then he says lahaskilula. He's having to get the idea and then to bring it into a series of developments. Well, that's really because right from the beginning you're committed, and that and commitment are very close. You're committed to the unit. And that's what we're going to see. That's really the difference between this and the previous people who we mentioned, even though they were quite brilliant and gifted people. Well, but the difference is that our emes chacham is committed. That he's given over in a way that he wants the emes and the profundity. That's his whole inyan right from the beginning. Mipnei she'etzem klei moichei mesugodim lekabel chochmeis habe. In other words, mesugal means they are, ready and fit. Or it's from the word zgula. It's like a participial noun from the word zgula. And zgula means like elitza. Zgula. Yatem ha'isum li zgula mikol ha'amid. They said that Yidnara, azgula. And Rashi says over there, what is the inner of an Asgula? Oitzar nechmad shel malachim. It's like the hidden treasure that the king keeps away for himself. Yeah? In other words, you can't really describe it. It's not a normal treasure. It's a oitzar nechmad. It's some sort of hidden storehouse that the king keeps, and it's very, very rare. Yeah, that's the inner of a Asgula. So what the Rebbe says is that somebody that works this way with Chokhmah, and he's etzem kli, and the things he's one yichud, he's got what we call a moyav mesugal lechokhmah, which means that he's become so devoted to Chokhmah, lahamik, so given over to Chokhmah, that his moyav becomes like almost unnaturally ready for these things. In a way, it's like an elixir. He's got a certain, you say, oh, this is a gifted man, or you say, this is an unusually, to-the-point man. In other words, the ability of the kli is already in the form of a sgula, meaning that it's ready at any moment for a different and very emistic way of looking at it. Therefore, a lot of people who heard the Rebbe, they would say, wow, that's a line that I've never heard of before. I've never quite thought about it that way. Not just, the Rebbe is the most amazing example of it, but we also find in the other Rebbeim and another Gedolei Yisrael, Amitiyim, B'meshech T'Toyreis, that was what people said about what they heard, from these people. Or you would hear sometimes a person would say, why didn't I realize that myself? It just becomes like so obvious, and yet it's not. It only becomes obvious when you realize what it's all about. And that realizing of what it's all about is because you relate to the speciality of it. That's called musugodim. That means that he's kli and musugod. How it gets all these things will soon come to. V'lachin, he said, gam terem she'osar. V'lomad, v'hiskil, askoles. Even before he's learned anything, anu koirim oisei chochom. I don't say anything, any given chochmah, we call him the word chochom. In other words, the word chochom is a continuous governing term for his whole life. And he's called a chochom, mipnei shanu yoidim boy, we are certain in him, in this man, k'sheyilmoid v'yisasik boy inyan. And he will learn, and he will busy himself with this matter, yishchachem boy, harbe. He will form many, many new ideas. And this idea of ribui indicates a constant flow. It's harbe. Harbe means like a multiplicity. We know that there's going to be tremendous new, rich results from him having grasped that particular inyan. And therefore we call him a chacham even before he learned it. He hasn't learned that inyan yet, but we know, we say, rely on him. Once he learns it, then there'll be what to hear. And that's what separates him from other, it makes him very special from other people. You might say, well, wait a minute, Pliny also learned that. Why don't you want to hear thirstily what Pliny says? So he said, no, he's different than Pliny. Why? Because it's within his ability to go into the profundity of it very more, because he's committed. That's why I said Das is this whole union of profound given over of the self to the union. He's lahamik b'zeh yosef, yischakim b'yaser. He will within himself produce new chokhmas in a special way or more way in quantity. B'yaser mipnei sheklei moichei muchanim u'mesugarim lezeh. In other words, that his clay moich, the keli of his moich is muchan, and it's also musugal. It's got this like electric, almost unnatural or lamayla mi'ateva type leaning. That once he gets it, then it will fruitify, to use the expression. Mamela says the Rebbe, "V'zeu shema toya shemataya etzem klei or kli chokmosei." Or clay chokmasei, ahema bo'efen toiv. In other words, that they're in the best possible way. Better than that you can't have. V'hainu etzem clay moichoi kli shelamayla mipiula adayin. Now you see, in other words, now the Rebbe said this is the etzem way he is before any pu'ula. He hasn't gone out for himself at all yet. That's the way he will be with it, and he will function and fruitify and the whole thing. In other words, that this guy before we saw look be an Emesachom, but we called him only Hashem Akinui, because his whole relationship to his chachma was in the form of a pu'ula. It was like an activity, that he was pu'el certain things, and it was all in the form of chitzenis, and that's why it was good for other people, because it sounded very impressive. That says the Rebbe, this fellow is l'mayla piula, all these inyonim are before he would go down. Now, that doesn't mean that when he does go down, that his hashpah will not be very effective. Oh yes, it will. Dafki, because he's so highly united with the Inif Chachma, when he goes down, then he will give over tremendous hashpah. But his etzem earning of the name Chacham is for the time being beyond the Inyan for Pi'ula. It's an Inyan which his own personal greatness, in that his Kli and the etzem of the Chachma are united B'yichud Goma. Until we say that the Kelim are Musugolim and Mukhonim to the etzem Inyan of Chachma, and therefore he said he's not Akinui, Hashem Akinui, in the form of a Pa'ula. And that's why we say that he's Lamayla mi Pa'ula Adayin, who Atzmes HaKli, Shu Be'etzem Kli LeKabbalah. In other words, now we're talking about the Pnimius of the Kli, not the Chitanius. We're talking about the Etzem Pnimius of the Kli, until we call it Atzmes HaKli. And we say that Etzem HaKli is Be'etzem HaKli LeKabbalah. That's what a new phrase, a new, like nuance. There's a Kli Kabbalah. Here we're going to move over to a whole new nuance in the Inyan, and that is tremendous importance to the understanding of Chassidus in general. To what is the, how do you might call it? L'chora, everybody's got a brain, and everybody's got such shleimus, a nefesh. Everybody's got the ability to understand things. The nefesh has got the koyach hachachma, and everybody's got all these different little, how do you call it, cells and other masalach inside their brain that he's got. Yeah. Why is it that everybody's brain doesn't function like it? And you might say, well, like that. No. Because there's a famous Tana of Eliyahu was brought down that every Yid should say Mosai, Yagiu Maasai. He brings it in the Bosik Lagana that have been Iskimul Mosai, Yagiu Maasai, Maasai Avram Yitzchak Yankee. In other words, that everybody's got the right to say, why shouldn't when's it going to be that I'll also be like Avraham? Avinu. So the Rebbe says over there, because everybody's got what it takes. But not that everybody uses what they got to reach that level. In other words, so the Rebbe is about to tell us now what is the key, or what is the, how do you call it, the code word, or what is the click that makes that you will have that ability to reach all these amazing midas in Chokhmah. And so he says, you have to be a Kli. And you have to be in Kli Guf, you have to be a Kli LeKabbalah. You have to know that your whole inyan is only to be Makabel. If you want to be a Chacham, understand. You want to be a Chacham Pirush, you want to hear Chacham Amitiyas from the Emesa Rebbes and the Emesa Mashpiyim that have to give Chacham. You yourself don't have anything of yourself. You're not looking to be a Chacham, and you don't have any Kavanas. All you want to do is be a Makabel. And that's what we're going to see. The most amazing thing in Adar is going to say that how is this person different? Because he made himself right from the beginning only a Kli LeKabbalah. There's an amazing statement in Torah Sholem, the Rebbe Rashav said once that, what is my whole, it's very profound, you have to watch your words over there. But the sort of noise ha'inin is, the Rebbe Hashem said, why have I reached a point where I can tell you people something? He said, because by my father, he said, I was just absolutely a clear, like a ball, until I was like an Eved Bilvad. He said, I was just a Eved, a clear, like a, he said, by my own tongue. So he said, that's why I'm able to give you over, because I was just a clear, like a Bilvad. And give a look what he gave for. And he said about himself that when he, at a certain point in his life, he was only a clear, like a so that's what we're going to learn now. So therefore said the Rebbe, to say inen kli be'etzem mahusa, that's what a kli is, be'etzem mahusa, shehi kli leka. Well, what is a kli? A kli is made to receive in itself things. Yeah? And the more the kli makes itself only ready to receive, then the more it's a kli. Yeah? And the more it's able to receive. Tazeh sheboy val yodei tia ashpur. Yeah? Sorry. Tazeh sheboy val yodei tia ashpur. Einze mahusa kli. The mahusa kli va'atzmusa huma shehi kli lekabbalah. He said that what kli later becomes a mashpia, and kli gives forth ashpur to somebody else. He said that's not the etzeminin of the kli. That's another necessity which we demand of the kli, that it also be a mashpia to the zula. He said, well, then what makes it a kli? In other words, we'll see, maybe the truth is that that's what he's mashpia to another person is a form of Mesilas Nefesh on the part of an emes chacham. It's a form of Mesilas Nefesh, only because that's the kavana, and that's will the Rebishter, and that's what his Rav wanted in any way, and so on and so forth. But the giving over of ashpur, that's not the Indian. What makes a kli? A kli is only its bittul to be mekabel. That's what is a kli. And ever said the Rebbe that what through the kli that becomes ashpur, that's not the atzmus of the kli. Yeah, he said the whole Indian is what it's a kli lekabbalah. V'zeu gamkein etzem mahus kli hamoichin ma shehein kelim lekabel uyer haseicho. We'll see that the whole greatness of the moichin is, and what we talk about the bittul in moichin. We say that moichin have the meaning for bittul, koyach ma. The kol inyonim ha'ilu is there the Indian of the moichin is that they're only kelim lekabel uyer haseicho. Now, what is Oyer HaSeichel? That we're going to deal with, hopefully in the coming shiur, we'll deal with more about the whole concept of Oyer. Up to now, we're talking about the Kli. To decide how do we define the Oyer and in what way does it relate to the Kli. He said, the inyan of a Kli is only to be a Mekabel Bilvad. That what it gives forth Ashpur. It's 100 miles. And that's the inyan which is maybe due to the Kavona Lyoina, maybe due to Mesilas Nefesh, or Nishdos is a Kli. And that's what he said, a commotion is Boaliyil, Bebitl Atalmid El Rabbi. We spoke, you remember, in previous Maimah, we spoke about the Bitl Talmud El Rabbi, Shaloi B'chinas Mashpia, Kim B'chinas Mikabel, but the Bashas is hearing from the Rav, he's not a Mashpia, he's Gonish, he's home, he is only to be a Mekabel Bil Ba'ad. And on the contrary, that was the first Madrega in Talmud. And then he brought over there another Madrega where his whole Matthias is completely lost altogether. For our purposes here, the whole Indian of a emes Talmud is that he's only a Kli Lekabel. That's what makes him emes Mekabel, and then later he'll be a mashpia. When it'll come the time, it's a zayin mashpia. Avalei sato kol inyoni is only kli lekabbalah bilvad. And mamera umisachtim im haoyer haseicho ad shachoim va'atzura yesh lehem eretz zela. This is a further chiddush nifla. He said until such point that the kli and the oil unite together in such a way that they become like one, entity. Es ist zwei Inyonim hafuchim gemacht. Rechoichim ze mize betachle. And he said, no. They receive a type of Eretz Zelazeh, that they are misachid in such a way that the choimer and the tzura are mishkarev one to the other. Now, choimer means the idea of the material, as it were. Tzura means literally the inner shape. In our thing here, it means the nefesh or the oil, which is mislavish in the kli. Sometimes we refer to guf and nefesh, but you can call it as choimer v'tzura. In other words, anything which is more towards the inyan of a matziyas is called a choimer, and anything which is in the form of a pshitas is called a tzura. Even though it's interesting, because the word tzura means a shape. Well, that's also a very interesting musa haskim. That what is an emes a shape, something doesn't have any shape. We'll talk about that as we go further. Anyway, the nakuda is that choimer and tzura are like literally almost you might call guf and nefesh. So the inyan here is the inyan from the metzias of the klei moyach and the yor seichel. So the Rebbe said that they are misachid one with the other. So how can it possibly be? How can you have choimer and tzura, which are two? If the choimer becomes botil, and the choimer says that its whole hin is only to be kabul from the oil, so the oil can sort of get together, because the inyan from klila kabbalah is bittul and shlilas inen hamatiyas. Shlilas hamatiyas, then the two can become almost like one entity. So the Rebbe doesn't say misyachadim, he says misachadim, because echad implies that they're like two matiyas would become one. So the two delicate matiyas, but the poil they become like one inyan. עד שהחיים והצורי יש להם ערך זה לזה, והיינו, בבחינת זו דווקא, in this state, דהיינו, בבחינת פנימיוס הכלי, שיש להם ערך זה לזה, וכמו שכוסף במוחים אחר. As Portan considers that the pnimius of a kli is very similar to the oil, and therefore the oil and the pnimius of a kli become almost like one inyan. So what is the pnimis hakli? Only when it's a kli lekabona, and that's what Talmud says. What's the pshat pnimius hakli? The oifen of kli with kol inyona is only to be makabel de. That's kol inyona, and then the oil is able to be misachid with him. So here we see the amazing biur in the inyam. What does it mean pnimius? Here, when I get to a thing which is a matziyas, what does it mean? Pnimis, bittul of that matziyah. That's called. And that gives away that in and altogether. Oh, that's called pnimias. And he said, the gam, where are we? Between the zudavki, I'm between pnimis hakli, sheyesh lohem erev zelozeh. Achomish kosim moki macher. The hagam shekli va'oyer heima rochoikim zemezeh. They're very distant one from the other. Zeh gashmi v'zeh ruchani. Now when he says here gashmi, he doesn't mean gashmi, but he means le'era ruchnias, it's gashmias. If we talk down here, the Evrei Guf and the Nefesh, then that's the case. They call mochim b'pchinas pnimis hakli. Yesh lezeh eze dugma ve'erech ela or. It's like comparable, and it also almost becomes like the same, knip, the same, it's like the same inyan as the oil. וכמובן במוקימחה בין רוחניה שבגשמיאז, שמסקשה עם הגשמיה שברוחניה. Now that's a very big inyan. ועניין הרוחניה שבגשמיאז, היינו הכונס הכלי, מה שהיא כלי מוכנה ומסוגולה לקבל ישראל. There's a famous line from the Rebbe Rashab in some base. Well, it's called Vidav Hashem Ki Sovoel Ha'oretz Pasha Bahar. Ki Sovoel Ha'oretz V'shov Ha'oretz Shabbos L'Havaya. That's the pasuk that begins with. That's the in Shemitah, and that's in the end of Tov Reish Sam Beis, not the end, but towards the end. No, wait a minute. No, I'm wrong. It's before the Drusha Shvuos. There's a big series of Maimonim out there for Shvuos. Before the Drusha Shvuos, there's a Maimon, a very amazing Maimon. And in the old days, some of the Mashpim used to tell people to learn it, because it's a very Vedic Maimon as well, apart from a lot of deep inyanim, but it's very into Aveda. Al-Chaponim over there, he talks about this whole concept of Ruchnius Shebagashmius and Gashmius Shebaruchnius, and that's Bekitza, very much Bekitza Nimrod. And then we'll leave the Ike Bia Me'er Tashem till the beginning of next week, B'Shar Teva. And then I hope that we'll also bring an Eitz Chaim, and we'll take a look at what was that Ha'ara that we didn't do. However, the Rebbe's Masba over there, that how is it that Chayes Ruchnias, the Chayes from the Nefesh, how is that able to be mislavish in the Eivorim? They're Gashmi. That's Ruchnias. How does it get one to the other? And you can't say it's not mislavish. It is. It's mamish mislavish. The Eir Nefesh, mamish mislavish in the Eivra Guf or Harai, but the Eivra Guf are alive with a Chayes Ruchni. They receive it mamish pepnimis, and therefore they're alive with a Chayes Nefesh. The Chayes should be like the Nefesh pushes a machine. Only as long as the electric power is pushing it, it works. But after you turn it on, it doesn't work. It's not like that. The Eir Nefesh actually unites with the inyanim of the body until your finger is alive. It's not being pushed by something, but it's mamish alive from the nefesh. And Mamire says that Rebbe, how does that work? How can it be that a Dor Ruchni can be mamish misachid with a Dor Gashmi? And he writes over there that in every Dor Gashmi there's what's called Ruchni Shebeh Gashmi. It's a very fascinating idea, and that doesn't mean the Chayes of the Nefesh. That's after the Chayes of the Nefesh is eventually mislavish. Then you got another Ruchnius in all the Eivorim, and that's called the Slavs of the Nefesh. But he said, in the Gashmi Gufa, there is a certain trace of a Ruchni, and that catches on to the Ruchnius of the Nefesh and makes this unbelievable unity of the Nefesh Ruchni with the Gashmi possible. What does he say that is? He says that every Gashmi in the Evorei Aguf has got a certain Aleph Dalad, aid. That's always put down in the Bereshit, but aid, Yala Min Oret, like a vapor went up from the earth. And that caused the rain to come down. You know, the posuk over there. So he writes over to the Rebbe that the way the Eibush made the Guf, even without the Chayes HaNefesh, is that Guf, and the Gashmis of the Guf, has got what he calls a certain very, very delicate, like spiritual, even though it's very close to Gashmias, like what you might call a ruchnistic moisture in it, of a sort, and that's called Ruchni Sheba Gashmias, and that catches on to the Gashmi Sheba Ruchnis. Pirush, the Nefesh has got a very low level in itself that goes down and becomes almost like a Gashmi. In other words, that it's a Ha'ora from the Nefesh, and the Ha'ora from the Nefesh, which is called Gashmi Sheba Ruchnis, catches onto this aid which is inside the Ruchni Sheba Gashmias, and then the two get together, and then you can have a slavshus of the Nefesh in the good. So you've got to be very careful to learn the Pshat the right way. Ruchni Sheba Gashmias does not mean the Nefesh. That's our eigene Ruchnias with how do you call it, that the Gashmi has. And that's a very amazing thing that only the Eibush could have made that the way he makes the body originally, that he shapes it in such a way when it's in the embryo of the mother and everything in the womb of the mother, he shapes the guf and he makes it in such a way that he'll be able to make kabel the chayas of the nefesh. And he says that every inyan in the world has got a certain trace of that. Yeah, the gufis of all the animals and the birds and everything. And I feel to a certain extent, even the earth itself, it's got a certain, like, aid, a certain delicate. That's what's written over the aid, yalam in earth. It went up this very amazing vapor from the ground itself. Is that's called Gashmi, Ruchni Shebegashmias. And Gashmi Sheberuchnias is the nefesh that's looking to get to the guf and it can't. So it goes down a certain ha'ora within itself. All of a sudden there pops up this Ruchni Shebegashmias, and then they unite together, and through that the nefesh bring more energy from itself, and eventually make an emissary hislabshit. So what the Rebbe is touching right now is, what is that Ruchni Shebegashmias? Bittul. That there's a type of bittul inside the Gashmias which allows it to receive the inner from Ruchni. We'll see more about that as we go along. In other words, that everything that makes any kli a worthy kli is that it's ready and able and has in itself a bittul. And the greater the bittul, the more it becomes misached with the ruchnias, and therefore this person that he became a emes chacham b'shem Atoya because he be'emes was bottled, and the more he was bottled, the more he eventually becomes a chacham b'shem. Goes into the kudah.